Welcome, guys, to today's coffee hour for the month of May. We hold our coffee hours for the third Friday of every month from 10 to 11 on Zoom. So if you're around with a cup of Joe or your beverage of choice, please feel free to stop by. Our vision of the coffee hour is to provide an opportunity for towns to interact around a sustainability theme. Hear some success stories from peers, share ideas, challenges, opportunities, ask questions, and build relationships. Today's theme is organic waste management. We'll hear some stories from Mansfield and Stamford about how they're managing food waste organics. Another major focus of today's coffee hour is to share information on the Green Bank's environmental infrastructure program and get your input on how the Green Bank can best support municipal waste infrastructure needs. Yet another goal of all our coffee hours is to help you connect with our team here at Sustainable CT. For the sake of that, there's tons of people on Sustainable CT here. I know you're here. It's great, but we have a time constraint. So I'm going to instead introduce our special guests. Today we have Lee Welpton she is the Director of Environmental Infrastructure Programs at the CT Green Bank. We have Ashley Stewart, Manager of the Community Engagement at Sustainable CT, or at this Connecticut Green Bank. We have Ginny Walton, who's the recycling coordinator for the town of Mansfield. And Dan, I'm so sorry about pronouncing your last name. So sorry if I mispronounce it. But we have Dan Cooley-Laurie, and he's the Director of Recycling and Sanitation from the city of Stamford. Without further ado, I will kick it off to Lee, who will start us off with an overview of the CT Green Bank Environmental Infrastructure Initiative.
Thanks, Torin. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for starting your Friday with us. And I should say happy Friday to all who celebrate. So I'm just going to share. I don't have slides. I thought it would be a great way to kick off today as a bit more dialogue and discourse if we just connect a bit. So I'll share a little on the Connecticut Green Bank, and then we'll have time as part of today's discussion to, excuse me, hear a bit from all of your perspectives. So for folks who need a little refresher on what the Connecticut Green Bank is, we were established by the Connecticut General Assembly in 2011 as the nation's first state-level green bank. We are a quasi-public state agency, and really we're meant to accelerate the deployment of clean energy, and now very excitedly, environmental infrastructure using limited public dollars to attract private capital investment. Since inception, the Green Bank has mobilized $2.5 billion in the state's green economy. Our leverage ratio is about 7-to-1 in terms of private to public dollars invested to support the creation of more than 27,000 green jobs, reducing the energy cost burden, of over 68,000 families, businesses, and nonprofits. And the reason we're here today, just recently, our mission expanded to include waste and recycling through an act, again, of the legislature. In 2021, our mission was expanded from clean energy into environmental infrastructure through Public Act 21115. That is defined as, okay, I'm going to read this because it's long and you'll understand what we're up against. Structures, facilities, systems, services, and improvement projects related to water, waste and recycling, climate adaptation and resilience, agriculture, land conservation, parks and recreation, and environmental markets, including but not limited to carbon offsets and ecosystem services. We're a mighty team of 2 at the moment. You have 100% of the Green Bank's environmental infrastructure team on today's call, but we are hiring and building the team, so stay tuned for more there. And really, our expanded scope and authority into environmental infrastructure makes us the first green bank in the country to focus beyond clean energy now on environmental infrastructure and so-called nature-based solutions for folks who are familiar with that terminology. So far, we've started off our efforts by developing primers for each of those categories listed above: climate adaptation, resilience, agriculture, land conservation, parks and recreation, etc. In fact, I've got a link that I can drop in the chat for anybody who wants to see some of the primers that we've developed so far to get a sense of kind of how we've started out the gate with our attempt to learn more and really understand the issues, the stakeholders, the policies, existing sources of funding and financing, and potential opportunities to engage. So that's been a bit of the work to date. That's also led us to a working strategy for how we're going to start on our environmental infrastructure projects and programs. We're calling it our 1, 2, 3 approach. Love a good 3-part listicle. And so part 1 of our emerging strategy is really kind of building on the Green Bank's bench strengths to expand existing programs, clean energy programs to include aspects of environmental infrastructure. Part 2 is to pursue opportunistic project finance opportunities. And this one I'll clue in on just to say, if you are aware of a potential project that would benefit from low-cost debt, if your town has a potential need for working capital along the kind of strategies of our environmental infrastructure focus, just reach out, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. And then longer term, we'll be working to develop more strategic programs related to what we really see is a great opportunity to pursue at a more programmatic level for public financing. But today we're here obviously to talk about organic waste. We are currently kicking off our waste and recycling primer development process and stakeholder engagement process. So we've completed our primer on agriculture, on land conservation, on parks and recreation, environmental markets, and water. That leaves with our last big focus here, waste and recycling. I probably don't need to tell anybody who's on the line today about some of the issues affecting waste and recycling in your town, let alone across the state. We've got public policy that's very much in development and in flux. We have some complexities there with trying to get the needs of municipalities addressed at the same time, really setting state policy in a direction that works. We're also operating amidst landfill closure and no space for in-state disposal. So a big need for and focus on self-sufficiency within the state to handle some of our waste streams. Currently, we don't really have an in-state waste plan for non-organic, non-recyclable materials. So there's that. And then with a lot of necessary out-of-state disposal, there are a lot of greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution that come from the transportation of those materials. So the Green Bank is very interested in organic waste management solutions, et cetera, partly because it fits very well within our mission and capabilities, having previously made a couple of investments in anaerobic digester capacities or facilities for food waste, and then for farm waste and food waste separately. Also, just out of pragmatism, food waste is Connecticut's second largest waste stream, accounting for 22% of the state's total waste, nearly 500,000 tons a year as of 2021 data, which is responsible, for folks who know the stats, 60% of greenhouse gas emissions from landfill come from food scraps, and that is not accounting for transportation emissions for landfilling out of state. So, for example, about 200,000 tons a year of Connecticut waste are trained or trucked to the ever so ironically named Sunny Farms landfill in eastern Ohio. That waste travels over 650 miles to get there. And I just have to share, as a native Ohioan, I am entirely not sure how to feel about that. So we're really here today to connect, to discuss how you and your municipality experience some of those issues and some of the challenges we face with both creating and implementing solutions. So I'll hit the pause button on myself there and really look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you, Lee. Much appreciated. Does anybody have any questions about the Green Bank infrastructure team or any of the work that they're doing?
And we'll have more time for questions at the end, but if we can clarify anything up front, happy to do so.
Well, we might circle back to that conversation later, Lee. But thank you for presenting. We really appreciate it. Next, it would be really great to hear from Ginny Walton, who is a representative of the town of Mansfield. They have some great projects going on in terms of green infrastructure. So Jenny, why don't you take it away?
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I am the recycling coordinator for the town of Mansfield, and I am involved with some composting projects. We've been composting our school food scraps K through 8, and also some residential food scraps at the transfer station, in the transfer station leaf pile. And we have been advocating for backyard composting. But last year, we went out to bid for our single-family trash collection. And in that RFP, we had asked for proposals on curbside food scrap collection. And at the time, there was a dairy farm on Route 44 in Coventry, which is 8 miles from the town, that had up and running an anaerobic digester. And according to them, they were going to start accepting food scraps as well. So the anaerobic digester is there for their manure. They are at this point taking liquids, but as it turns out, they're not taking solid foods. So our proposal was based on a local outlet for food scraps. And we no longer have that. So what we've done is we've asked residents to opt in for the food scrap collection. We need a minimum amount of people to do it. We haven't reached that. And what we're looking at doing is making it an opt-out option. So it would be the cost of the food scrap collection would be built into the trash fee, because we have pay-as-you-throw trash service. So residents would pay for it. And we would then have people opt out if they compost it at home or bring their compost to the transfer station in the leaf pile. And the issue is that the food scraps, so it's Blue Earth Composting that would do the collection. The food scraps, and I call it scraps, not waste, because leftover food is not waste. It's full of nutrients. You know, I'm a farmer, so, or an agriculturalist. So really, I don't use that word waste at all. It's not waste. So Blue Earth Composting would take the food scraps to the Southington plant, the anaerobic digester. And you know, ecologically, that just, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I know Scara is building a facility in Preston. That's where our trash goes to the incinerator. And so that'd be a little bit closer than Southington. But we need infrastructure in Eastern Connecticut. So I went to the compost conference in March and talked to an engineer who's doing the Scara static aerated pile system, and said, you know, could we get something going at our transfer station? I mean, it's a small space, but it's really a pretty good space because it's well drained. It's not, I mean, it's just the situation is good. And so, you know, we're exploring an aerated static pile system at our transfer station to take the food scraps that would be collected from single-family residents. Now, the issue is funding to have that created, you know. So we've got the contract queued up. You know, we can get the rates queued up. Now we need the outlet for the material, since the farm is not taking food scraps. So that's one thing that we're in the midst of. The other thing is that we are also looking to do a deconstruction, get some traction on deconstruction in Mansfield, and we're looking to do a pilot of collecting building materials. And one of the things that we would really like to do and has been on the books to do, but again, it's funding, is to have our swap shop be a much bigger building that would include building materials and maybe some lawn equipment that residents bring in. Because we really want to put an exclamation point on reuse over recycling or tossing out. And so that again is an infrastructure need. The state of Connecticut does have some outlets for building materials. You know, we talk about food scraps as a potential for taking out of the waste stream, but you know, the built environment has a lot of embodied carbon. And we need to be addressing like what's happening to our building material. Actually, that getting landfilled has a higher carbon footprint than residential waste. So why aren't we talking about that and pulling good lumber, good building materials out of the waste stream before it's getting landfilled? So we'd like to expand our transfer station so that we have a large swap shop so that we can do some collection of building materials and put in the book some kind of deconstruction ordinance. So that is it.
Thank you, Jeannie. Much appreciated. It seems that we do have a couple questions that have come through the chat. Jenny, what is the potential cost of the infrastructure investment in Mansfield for an aerator?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I've talked to the engineer and I've talked to him about the potential cost of design. I think you know, there would be a concrete pad or pads that would be a cost, but I don't think the actual aerated system would be that costly. You know, would we have it so it'd be solar powered? You know, probably. But yeah, I don't know. We're just beginning that process of looking into it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I also have another question in the chat from Jen. Have you explored working with Deep, Jenny, to make an amendment to their solid waste permit to allow leaf and food composting at their transfer station? For reference, this is something that Coventry is looking at.
I've given up on Deep, Jen. I mean, we did a demonstration project to allow for residential food scraps. So that was $500 to do that. And we have maybe 50 residents who participate. DP decided that, you know, it's so small, you know, keep doing it. And then we had to apply for another residential another demonstration project to allow the school food scraps to be composted in the leaf pile. And all this time I'm saying, why can't DEP just create a permit for it and have gotten a line, you know, just yeah, I don't know. It's DEP seems intractable. Sorry to say that, but I guess if there were any, you know, one other way of helping municipalities would be to help improve the permitting process, you know, the turnaround time of permitting with DEP and getting some of these things in place. I know the people who work for DEP want to see these things happen. You know, regional small scale compost systems really need to be in place in order for resilience, the state to be resilient. But for some reason, there's just this logjam and, you know, it doesn't happen.
Domingo, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm a composter down in New Haven, and I've been doing compost for a long time. And the aerated static pile system for a municipality is very, very inexpensive when you compare it to a large anaerobic digester. Plus the benefits for making good quality compost, it goes a long way. There's an example out in Onondaga County in Syracuse. You can read it on Biocycle magazine, how to develop a system. They have a system that costed $2 million. That's peanuts to be able to manage all the organic waste of 5 municipalities. Here's an issue of having land, of having, people trained, and the willingness to work with organic waste. A lot of people that are in municipalities are very hesitant because they haven't handled organic waste and do not know how to do it, and they're always fearful about nuisances and odors and rodents and all, you name it. But if you know how to do composting, those are the least of your issues. So it's a matter of looking out of experiences out there that are multiple, hundreds of them are around the nation, and see, which one we can replicate here. We are promoting a lot of the collection of organic waste. We are not developing the infrastructure to absorb it. And we are relying on this anaerobic digester, which they are highly costly, and we still need to truck it across the state to be able to process it. So that's my comment. There's a lot of information out there, and we can replicate it here in Connecticut.
Thank you for your input, Domingo. I see some other people have their hand raised, but in respect of time and the fact that we want Dan to share his lovely story about what's going on in Stamford, I asked that we're going to hold questions until maybe the end of Dan's presentation. So Dan, why don't you tell us about what's going on in the city of Stamford?
Okay, so we've had a drop-off food waste composting program at our recycling center for almost 3 years now. First year, we accepted 40,000 pounds. Year two, 85,000 pounds. And this year, we're on pace. So far, we've collected over 100,000 pounds. We felt that was from a sustainable CT grant, our machine purchase. We have an aerobic dehydrator, if you will, that produces a compost additive that has to cure for 2 weeks. And then it's eligible to be used by the residents who partake in our program. So we felt so successful about it. We bought another machine from our same vendor. Our vendor at that time is Echo Rich, and that machine we put at a local public farm, and they've started accepting food waste there as well. That was as of this past January. And then due to the success of our program, we applied for an EPA grant, and we were lucky enough to win an EPA grant, a solid waste infrastructure grant through EPA for over $2 million. That grant is allowing us to, first off, hire a wonderful food waste sustainable coordinator, and that's a part-time position. We are then able to purchase four additional machines to process food waste. We're able to purchase 52 big bellies put throughout the city to collect drop-off of food waste. The grant is also allowing us to hire people to collect that food waste and bring it to the machines, to pay for a truck for collection of those materials, to pay some solid money for education to the public, education and marketing. So we've just started this program in April. So we're kind of progressing forward with what we want to do. So again, our numbers are over 100,000 pounds for this fiscal year. I anticipate we're going to get 500 to 800,000 pounds in the future. And the benefit of our program is that the closest state certified compost facility is in New Milford. So to us, that's a 90 some odd mile round trip. So we're eliminating those negative factors. We are and the negative costs, let's be clear, hauling costs and tipping fees at these locations is quite expensive. So we're eliminating a lot of that cost. We've gotten, we will have all of our machines mostly subsidized by grants. So we're able to save the city money. We're able to eliminate food waste outside of our MSW that we haul away. You know, this year we're on pace to haul away about 85,000 tons of garbage. You know, Lee had earlier today said food waste is 22%. Numbers I've always heard is it's somewhere between 22 and 35% of MSW going out. So, you know, if we can make an impact on that number, we're able to seriously save the city some cost expenses for MSW going out. I have a little program. I don't know if you can you see my screen?
No, you might want to give it another share, Dan.
Okay, I will give it another share. How about now? No?
Nope.
Hang on. Yeah,
There we go.
okay. So what we have is we started in 21. Like I said, I've given you the pounds that we processed. We are right now, it's a drop-off program. These containers that you see, the green and the gray container, those are part of our kits that we sell. The grant that I mentioned, the Swiffer grant, is going to allow us to provide about 350 of these kits out to residents for free. And that's where we're looking to really hit and attract low-income housing units that we can get them to partake in our programs. This is what our current machine looks like. It's a 500-pound a day machine. And this machine right now is at its max. You know, we're doing 2,000 to 2,500 pounds a week at our location, which is open 5 days a week. So one of the machines I'm able to buy through the grant is a 1,000-pound machine, and that's twice the size of this machine. So I'm going to put the 1,000-pound machine here and put this 500-pound machine somewhere else, and hopefully we'll be able to attract more. But it's a drop-off program, so we're really trying to make it easy. As we all know, recycling for residents is the easier it is, the better it is, the more effective it is. So that's what we're trying to do for our residents by putting these 52 big belly containers throughout the town, that we can have them drop off right in their neighborhoods and pick up as best we can. So this is an example of the stickers that we put on our machine, and in the right, you see the product that comes out, and it's a really clean, you know, additive to soil, and it's got to be mixed with, you know, 1 in 5, at least, with soil to be really useful. But we've had it tested and we've had some success with it, and so far it's been a positive program for us. So I don't know what you know, whatever information that I can give you. So I'll leave it open to anybody that's got any questions.
Thank you, Dan. I do have a few questions that came into the chat. Is the collector truck a sealed container? So if so, what is the cost, and who did you work with as not all haulers have the transportation
Exactly.
capability right now?
So great question. So the city of Stamford, I manage the team that collects garbage and recycling throughout the city. We don't contract it out, right? So we all know that hiring somebody out there to pick up food waste would be very expensive. So in the big bellies that we're going to put out there, the 52 throughout the city, they're going to have inside of them 32-gallon toters. So what we're going to do is, the collection truck is not a rear packer collection truck. It is a rack body truck that will have an auto lift on it, and we will just replace these toters on site, and then the the toters with food waste will go onto the truck, and then that truck will be driven to one of the 6 locations that'll have machines at that point in time, and the staff that we're hiring off the grant will process it. And it's a fairly easy process. So I'm not putting it in the back of a rear packer truck. We did a little research on what New York City does, or other municipalities, and they drive it to certified locations, and that is kind of as a landfill, right? They dump it out of the back of a rear packer truck. We can't do that for our machine, so that's why our machine is replacing of these toters that are in the big bellies.
Thanks, Dan. As you scale, do you anticipate being able to give the dehydrated material back to residents? If not, what do you guys intend to do with the leftover product?
Yeah, so the program right now is that residents who, drop off food waste can take the product at the end of it. The one that is at our public farm, they are reusing the end product. One of the locations that we will put one of the new machines off the grant is at our Mill River Park, which is quote unquote our central park in the city, and they will be using the end product. One of the other locations is at Westhill High School in town, and they have a greenhouse, and they have a whole program up there that hopefully they will be using the end product. The other machines that I'll be putting at these other public locations, the end product will be available for residents to take.
It's really good to know. Are any commercial entities dropping off food scraps, and what is the percentage of food scraps captured, diverted out of your total applicable waste stream?
Yeah, so at our one machine right now is at our recycling center. That's for residents only. At our farm, the local restaurants and businesses can drop it off. I don't think they are. One of our goals is to, again, have a machine at our Mill River, which is our central park. And I anticipate working with our district downtown to maybe working with the local restaurants to be able to drop off food waste there. We're not going to restrict it to residents only.
That's great. And it seems like you guys do have a plan essentially in place for collecting food scraps from restaurants and large food generators. Is there any elaboration that you guys would want to see happening in the future with those food generators?
Well, first off, we want to start the program, right? We want to see success. I don't think we have any food manufacturers in town that would do that. We have restaurants and kitchens and stuff like that. So I don't see us, give us the opportunity to start the program, be successful, and figure out how to expand from there.
Great. And I think I have just one last question. Would you mind just telling us all about the opportunity cost for purchasing and running an eco-rich machine?
Yeah, so when I first purchased the first machine, we got there through a matching grant through Sustainable Connecticut, and that machine, if I go back, cost us about $18,000, and there was matching funds which came through. At that point, we had organized a task force, and they went out and got donations. What we found, and that first machine was a 100-pound-a-day machine. And what we found in the first 2 months was great to start a program. 100-pound a day was nothing. We were overwhelmed. So what I did was I put city funds, and I replaced that 100-pound-a-day machine with a 500-pound-a-day machine, which costs, I believe, about $30,000. With the grant and the purchase of these new machines, the new machines, I'm going to be buying 3 1,000-pound-a-day machines and 1 300-pound-a-day machine. 300-pound-a-day machine is going to go to the high school. The 1,000-pound-a-day machines, I think, are going to be about 50 grand each, 55 grand each. And I found other vendors that will produce machines that are fairly consistent with that. So we're going to have to put out an RFP for that. And whether it go to Eco Rich or other vendors, like table to ground, or there are other the interesting thing that I found is that, terminology is, and you all probably have seen it, is used in a variety of different ways, whether it's a dehydrator. I'm familiar with anaerobic digesters, which are usually larger scale and more voluminous and more expensive. Our machine is an aerobic digester that we're able to purchase for much less than an anaerobic digester. So through the grant, I'm trying to find out if Build America, Buy America is required, because I've looked at machines that are produced in the US and completely different animals and completely different sizes. So the two vendors that I'm familiar with that produce the machines that I'm looking at are both manufactured in India. So I'm trying to figure that process out so we can purchase our machines as soon as possible.
Thanks, Dan. Maybe this will be a great time to end and close and move into our moderated Q&A session. Ginny, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Dan about, are you communicating to the people that are taking the dehydrated food scraps that it's not finished compost and that it needs to finish the composting process? I mean, we've offered food cyclers through our contract to residents and have made it very clear that it's not a stable finished compost product. It really needs to finish decomposing. So are you communicating that? Are people clear that this is not finished compost? It's not stable material yet.
Right. Well, try to do the best you can. At our location, we have signage that says that should be mingled with soil. If people do that, I can't say. But we do have signage out there that says that.
All right. With that being said, thank you, Dan, for giving us a lovely show and tell about your projects and what you got going on at Stamford. I would now like to move into more of a facilitated conversation. Lee and Ashley will help us flag any questions that you may have about even Ginny and Dan's projects, or even the initiatives that the Green Bank Environmental Infrastructure team can provide. So please feel free to take yourself off mute or pop those questions into the chat.
Can I talk for about 1 minute? I hope I'll be no more than that. My name is John Feinstein, and I patent technologies for carbon capture. And one is for municipal solid waste. And this would be using incinerators, which capture the carbon dioxide. And I'd like to be speaking to Covanta, Wheelabrator, Hitachi, and Mitsui about these things, but if I could work with any of you, they would take me more seriously. My thought is that we could have 4 incinerators spaced around the state at interstate exits to minimize traffic. And we're actually exporting 800,000 tons per year to Ohio and Pennsylvania out of our 3 million. The whole 3 million could be incinerated, and this would give us about 3 million tons per year of negative carbon emissions, which our state has 34 million right now. We could do something. The state does not know how to lower the greenhouse gas emissions anymore now that we have no more coal to reduce. So we need to go in this direction. And if anybody would be able to collaborate with me so we could approach these large companies. There are 2 things we could do with this CO2. One is to sequester it somewhere, but that would be expensive. The other is to sell it to Linde, and I believe that they would pay $100 a ton. There's a shortage of CO2 because we used to be getting it out of the ground where it was stored for millions of years, and we were taking it out. But one of those sources has become contaminated. So there's a shortage of CO2. It's up to $300 a ton. We could get $100 and it would be processed for food grade by Lindy. So there are some opportunities there for doing some good things. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you for starting off the conversation, Jonathan. I didn't get to introduce myself. My name is Ashley Stewart, and I work with Lee at the Connecticut Green Bank, trying to vision out what our waste and recycling investment strategy will be. I'm also really excited to hear from you all about what's going on in your towns. And I know this is such a small amount of time, but feel free to use the chat because we'll probably be reviewing that after in order to make sure that we keep track of what y'all's thoughts are. But I'd love to hear what options you're considering in your town to remove food waste from your waste stream. Jenny and Dan's examples were hugely motivating, but I'd love to hear if you all are on similar tracks and or if you're just getting started or you're further along and where you are. So feel free to use the hand raise button so we can figure out who would like to chime in, but we'd love to hear your thoughts. Domingo, I see your hand, which is hilarious. You got it.
So, let me just advocate a little bit about we're always thinking about trying to help municipalities and working at that scale, but you can also work at the community scale. And there's I belong to, and part of the steering committee of community composters under the Institute of Local Self-Reliance, and we are like 500 nationwide that works in many cities. And the spirit of all this is how can we capture a percentage of that organic waste that's getting out of the town and keep it locally to minimize environmental pollution, to enhance our soil through good composting and creating green jobs. When we talk about sustainability, it's not only about capturing CO2, it's how can we create also some circular economy within our communities. And in the state of California, there's a community composting alliance that with a 1% investment of the state in those efforts that are spread all around the state of California, they manage between 3 to 5% of the organic waste of the state and create a lot of surplus and benefits to the whole community. So I'm trying to spearhead a new development in New Haven. I have already one that closed down because I was working on the back of a borrowed site from a private business. I then moved to Common Ground High School, and now I have a plan to develop a new site. But I would like to also talk about the benefits of this type of efforts that will be compatible and will diversify the opportunities for what you're trying to do.
Domingo, thanks for that. You're absolutely right. There are some other metrics that we can be including into this, not just CO2 reduction. I saw Sam King in the comments. I think that was a raised hand. And then I'll go to Lisa after. Sam, if that wasn't a raised hand, just let me know.
Am I unmuted?
Yep,
Thank
you're
you.
unmuted.
Well, for some reason I can't start my video, but that's okay. Actually, if you want to go to Lee first, I have to take care of something very quickly, and then I can jump back after that.
Sure. Lisa,
Thanks so much, Ashley.
no problem.
Thank you. This has been a really wonderful offering, and I'm very grateful for the organizers. And Sam, what are you busy composting or something? Come on now. I'm just teasing Sam. So Lisa Pellegrino, Client Services Strategist with the Center for Ecotechnology, often abbreviated as CET, and we do a bunch of work throughout the state, 47-year-old environmental nonprofit. I would be remiss if I didn't just plug, because it's a very exciting time to be doing this work. The EPA just released an updated food recovery hierarchy, which is now a wasted food scale. And we have to be including conversations around prevention, donation, which in my humble opinion is where social justice issues actually intersect with environmental issues. And then also this idea of like, there's a pig farm in Connecticut, right? That's accepting food scraps. And so feeding hungry animals, like those are all solutions. And there's never going to be this one size fits all bullet, like they have to be locally relevant. And I appreciate these conversations around the need for infrastructure. Our kind of theory change with this is like, there's policy, there's infrastructure, there's of course enforcement of the policy. And then also this idea of education and technical assistance, which is what we do. around business and institutional education. The one thing I just wanted to actually ask is if the Connecticut Green Bank, which is, in my opinion, such an amazing avenue for catalyzing the change we need, is there assistance with creating pro formas, which are these kind of essentially like if you're not like really well versed in finance, but it'll model out over a certain moving money over time, because everybody's already paying for trash, right? And so as we take out different materials from the trash stream, there are, especially when you're looking at over a long time horizon, knowing those costs are only going to go up and you're accounting for things like inflation, you're able to start looking at like your different options. We're building something on site. What's going to be the cost benefit analysis for that? What if we send it over to, a commercial composter? What is the current cost right now going to Sunny Farms? Thank you so much, by the way, Lee, for that. Like that really was powerful for me to understand. Like Connecticut, along with many other states, I'm in New York in the Hudson Valley, right over the line near Danbury, is not taking care of its own. And we need to start thinking about this idea of stewardship and taking care of our own. And like you painting that picture of like, and it's going to Ohio is like very impactful. And I think us having those conversations and painting that picture for people can really catalyze change. And so I just would love to know if the Green Bank offers those kind of like services around creating pro formas to model out the different alternatives and what the costs are over like a 3-5 year time horizon.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere, Lisa. Thank you. But in terms of also, Ohio is very used to being a literal and figurative dumping ground. So like, I'm glad that the self-sufficiency issue for Connecticut really strikes a chord. It does with us too. So we are just starting out our exploration of where the Green Bank's effort, capacity, what have you, can be best placed. That's kind of the purpose for this conversation. Our experience is with helping to increase the processing capacity for food scraps, like with helping to get quantum biopower off the ground with some of their initial build out, or with Fort Hill Farm to deal with both farm waste and food waste. I put a couple links to some related articles about those transactions in the chat in relation to a question somebody sent through. No pro formas. No, we've not determined the direction of where to wade in. Part of that is we want to make sure that we're additive and supportive of our sister agencies. Part of that is we want to make sure that our efforts are as catalytic as possible. So this conversation and some of your feedback, like I'm taking some good notes, Lisa, on the idea of a decision support tool that could actually help a town consider whether a certain different choice would make economic sense. And then I think from our perspective, if you kind of, in a perfect world, how something like that could work would be really understanding then how you could finance on cost savings. So if there is a cost savings to be realized, how do you secure and finance against that such that the Green Bank could, again, in kind of an envisioning potential future scenarios, help a town actually implement with the power of public capital. So it's some great food for thought, thinking about how increasing processing capacity, increasing transportation capacity, helping groups to do some of those things where those requests are warranted. But also you bring up a good point about some of the decision support tools that can help to kind of shift some economic calculations from the current status quo. So a very useful comment.
Absolutely. And thank you also, Lisa, for uplifting the food hierarchy that EPA came out with recently, and talking more about the pre-stream, like reducing the amount of waste coming into the stream. I think we definitely need to give more attention to that part of the conversation. Sam, I'm going to give you a moment, but in the interest of time, I'm actually going to probably wrap us up after Sam's comment that will be likely brief.
Has to be.
I mean,
yeah.
Time flies, but go
Time
ahead.
flies. Thank you so much. And I know I'm supposed to be brief, but I do want to show appreciation to everybody who's in this group because there's some fantastic people, fantastic presenters. Glad to be a part of it. Very quickly, I just kind of want to share a little bit about our story. We started as a very small hauler because that was an easy way for us to get ourselves off the ground, bootstrapping it. And we've been able to build the company up to picking up between 800 and 1,000 tons per month. But our challenge has always been able to transition into that situation where we can process as well. And because of that, we only really bring our material to one compost facility in the state, and that's Quantum Biopower. And thank God for them. But we know that there's these other processors in the state, but they're always just in places that are so far from where food waste is actually getting collected that it doesn't really make sense. And so that's why we've been exploring for many years, trying to figure out how to process ourselves. And I feel like that's kind of what we're trying to get at here with this conversation, and with this conversation more locally, is how can we get these processing centers more localized? And so I've done personally a lot of research on this stuff. I've looked into these machines like the Eco Riches, like the HARPs, and I've looked into ASP, and I've even looked into anaerobic digestion. And I'm just going to tell you, like, businesses have to be involved in this, and you can't make money. None of these models make money. All of them lose money. From anaerobic, if you only have one anaerobic digester, it's not going to make money. All the way down to buying this 100-pound Eco Rich, they don't make money. So we have to figure out some way in order for private businesses to be able to utilize these technologies, because there are a lot of really good technologies out there. ASP is one that I really like to focus on, and we need to figure out how we can get more financing there. But whenever there is financing, it's always for municipalities and sometimes for nonprofits, but it's never for private businesses. So, yeah, it's been a little bit of a frustrating thing. One of the ways that we're trying to be able to make this work is to be able to partner with a municipality. There are really good examples of this working in other municipalities in other states. Massachusetts being a good one. There's Black Earth Compost up there. Compost Now in the sort of Research Triangle in Atlanta area is doing a lot of good work with that. Maryland, in the city of Philadelphia, they've been able to partner with a municipality and say, hey, we'll take in your food scraps, we'll do drop-off sites and all that stuff. Just let us use this area for composting. And as of yet, we haven't found a single municipality in the state that's willing to be like, this makes sense, even though there is so much good pedigree for it. So, love to explore that conversation with municipalities that are saying to themselves, that actually, yeah, that does make to it. I've talked to Ginny Walton about it. She was actually really gung-ho about it, but the space is just too small.
Right.
So,
well, Sam,
yeah,
I think you're doing a great job with building all the connections. I heard your companies mentioned so many times in this one call. Really excited about you being here, and not to cut you off, but in the interest of time, I do want to wrap up with saying a few things. One being, you all are the best thought partners across the state. I'm already reading the ideas that you are adding to the chat, and I'm really excited, along with Lee, to review them and to keep thinking about solutions for the state of Connecticut, right? Local solutions, to Domingo's point, keeping it local, dealing with our waste locally, and thinking about what can we be doing to best support you all. So again, I want to also thank Sustainable Connecticut for creating a platform like this for us to come and share ideas. I wish this was a coffee 2-hour chat, so that we could flesh out even more, but then I fear half of y'all wouldn't show up. So thank you all for doing this rapid fire waste conversation with us. Here at the Green Bank, we really appreciate your input, and we really look forward to staying in touch with you all. Lee put in the chat our website, but we also have a couple events coming up, so please look at what's going on with the Green Bank to stay connected. There's a lot of changes happening, and yeah, I wanted to leave a minute for Sustainable Connecticut to share on any announcements or.
Likewise, Ashley. We got things are moving at Sustainable CT. For those interested, we have we have a spring celebration coming up on June 11th from 4 to 7 at Wickham Park. Please feel free to come and celebrate the great works that are going on in Connecticut communities, as well as a chance to say farewell to our founder and executive director, Lynn Stoddard. And we also have a summer equity training series coming up, guys. I believe that is, let me just get the date, starts on July 7th. The workshops run from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. They're hosted by our great partners at Thought Partners Solutions. And this could also be used as points towards, I believe, Equity Action 1.2 for your Sustainable CT application. So please engage in the relearning process, and then you get some points on your application to begin as well. With that being said, I want to thank my special guests, Ashley, Lee, Ginny, and Dan, for stopping by today for this special coffee hour. We will not be having a June coffee hour, so unfortunately that Joe will have to be held over and steeped over until July. And we'll be coming in with a new, fresh, bolder coffee hour for you guys to enjoy. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy this great weekend, and we'll see you in July, folks.
Thanks all. Happy Friday.